Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever what time of day it happens to be that you're listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. On this episode, I have Leighann Wilson. Now, I first met Leighann online on LinkedIn, but then for a short time, I decided to sign up and start a master's, which I haven't completed. And she was one of my lecturers in STEM. So, Leighann, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Phil. I'll just correct you. My surname is Ness Wilson, so I've got
Uh,
a double barrel. Just a trick, a bit of a trick there, but Leighann Ness Wilson is my proper name.
my apologies, and thank you for
All good.
correcting me.
No worries.
So I mentioned that you were one of my lecturers. You work in STEM. You work in design. You had think about design thinking, and you do all things creative. So without me giving a resume bio, what is it that you actually do?
Yeah, well, we did first meet in that STEM course, but I will kind of say straight up, I was put into that course as a helper, I guess, for the master's program. But at the time, I was teaching technologies to the future primary teachers at ACU. And the STEM course was a bit of an add-on, which was fine. But it was like a emeritus professor who was a maths specialist, and she's like, "I need Leighann to come with me and teach this unit." And I thought, oh gosh, okay, can I? I thought she was the head of school. But it all worked out actually really well. And we bounced off each other. I did it for a couple of years and became friends. And I would, yeah, count her as one of my mentors now. Um, but yeah, so I've got a design background. As you know, Phil, my background is as an interior designer. And I did that for 10 years. And then I had my kids, 18 months apart, and studied to be a teacher. Yeah. So I'm sort of, I guess, qualified in secondary design and tech and visual art. And
Yep.
around that same time, the Australian Design and Technologies sort of curriculum was coming out, the national curriculum. So I kind of found that, you know, really exciting, and I kind of leaned into that as a specialization. And now I've taught at the uni, as we said before. I've worked in workshops. I've been a tech teacher in residence at a primary school, which was lots of fun. And at the moment, I'm a PhD candidate at QUT. So, yeah.
You've got your hands full.
Well, I'm doing mostly just that at the moment. Those other things are, over a period of 25 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you've covered quite a range of design areas, not only professional but educational. I know you're doing your PhD.
Hmm.
I'm assuming that's in design or some area of design.
Yeah, so I guess the nice thing about a PhD is, you set your own topic. And I mean, I don't think I would have survived doing it if I didn't love my topic. So my topic is about how design thinking impacts pre-service primary teachers. So I actually got my data from the students I was teaching at ACU. So they were in their second year of the Bachelor of Primary Education. And I worked with them. That was the course I kind of taught for 5 years. So I worked with them and got pre and post course data. I did focus groups and I collected an assignment. And it's my thesis is about the design and technologies curriculum and yeah, design thinking and all that good stuff. So I actually really love my topic. Some parts of the PhD I have a love-hate relationship with, but I think that's pretty normal.
Uh,
And I'm getting through it, and I hope to submit this year, actually. So it's getting pretty close, which is exciting.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that is a huge undertaking. Look, I've got a number of colleagues and friends who have completed their doctoral studies, and without a doubt, they said it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to complete,
Mm.
but one of the most rewarding and more intrinsically than actually, I mean, yes, you get the floppy hat and you get the PhD,
Mm.
which is all well and good, but just the internal accomplishment of completing up to 6 years of study
Mm.
um, is just amazing. So definitely hats off to you.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my supervisors early days, she said, I remember her telling me it's like a privilege to kind of look into something, that topic, so deeply for such an extended amount of time that, you probably don't get to do ever in other, when you're working in professional life as an academic, just that focus that doing a PhD kind of offers. And I'm like towards the end of it now, I'm really feeling that. I'm feeling really, quite fulfilled by it, and just now excited to share what I've found. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank
One
you.
one of the things which perfectly leads on to my next question, and one of the first questions I ask all my guests is, what is your why? So you've covered design, like your whole career has been focused on design. So what's your why behind that? What's the drive?
I think that it's a good question. Thank you, Phil. um, I think that for me, I started off, straight out of school, went straight to uni and did interior design, and I worked in that design industry. And I've always felt creative. I like to solve problems creatively. And when I had my kids, started the grad dip and started doing things with kids in that creative design sense. So for a period of time, I had this excellent job at QUT, and I was the STEAM education officer. So every week I would get a different school and I'd take them through this workshop of hands-on prototyping, design thinking, robotics, making, tinkering, playing. And I just realized basically that I get as much fulfillment, probably more, helping other people be creative as I do being creative myself. um,
I get that.
yeah, and I know you get that because you're, and I think that's the thing that drives me. And then in the research sense, like, why did I go down this research path? It's like I want to. I sometimes sort of think this isn't promoted enough. It's not seen enough. It's sort of, we need to kind of I guess, shine a bigger light on how important creativity and design thinking and hands-on learning and what it does for a kid. Like, I'm sure, I know you've had these experiences where you'll see a student in a class in a design experience come to life in a way that they might not in other learning areas or subjects. And I mean, that's an amazing thing to be part of for them. It's amazing to point it out to, their regular classroom teacher as well. I've often had that time where the teacher go, "Oh, that kid." And I love those moments. Like to really just, show, give that, I guess, creative confidence to those young people and show them what potential they have within them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that, like, absolutely, like, that's where I get the energy from when you're in the classroom. Now, I mean, there's so much that, as you know, goes into teaching practice, and there's administrative work, and there's reports, and there's this, and there's that. And look, it's all busy work, and it's all important work to an extent. But when you see the eyes of a child just light up after they grab a concept and run with it, or they complete a task that they really didn't think they could do. They didn't voice it or anything, but you can see it in them, in their body language.
Mm-hmm.
It's a privilege to behold, and also a privilege to be part of. Um,
Absolutely.
and I guess I've not had the opportunity, and look, I'm a high school teacher through and through. Year 7 is probably the lowest I can go. It's but you've had that. I've raised my own children, and I've seen the
Yeah.
joy in learning with them and teaching them things. But to do that full time, well, that's a whole other story. But you've actually been in there with those younger children, and
Yeah.
and
And
giving
the
them.
preppies.
Oh,
Yeah.
and how does that contrast with teaching the older students or even adults when they're you know learning something for the first time, or getting that concept, or just that light bulb moment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And that's one of the things, I guess, that my thesis is, um, like with a research question, you need to have a gap. And there's not much being written about design thinking at a primary level, and even less at at a pre-service level of the teachers of those primary students. Um, Design within primary, there's just such an opportunity to integrate that into the curriculum, because these students are, yours for the whole week, the whole year, and integrating, I think, is one of the most exciting, and it seems really obvious. That's how design is kind of comes to life, is when it's integrated with
Absolutely.
other subjects, and I think that's the key. So my role in the primary school as technologies teacher in residence, I actually got planning time with each year level. So I would look at what they were doing in house or science or maths or English, and we'd bring that design and digital technologies into that content. So maybe a picture book with the preppies, or some mapping kind of task with the year fours doing, the first fleet and that kind of thing. So I think it's about, and this isn't groundbreaking, but it's about meeting them wherever they are, isn't it?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think the middle years are probably my personal favorite, because there's heaps of excitement and energy in those rooms. It's chaos, but it's, yeah, good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I completely understand it, and I get the the attraction to the primary school because I mean I've worked in a number of K to 12 schools, and you see what they're doing, and the just the I guess immersive learning that they're doing in the primary and lower primary schools,
Mm,
and then all of a sudden they have a 6 week break, and then they come into year seven, and then everything is just siloed,
Followed, yeah.
and they almost the curriculum almost regresses with our
Mm.
expectations upon them. And so I guess with what you're doing, it's like how do we bridge that gap?
I think also, if we think about it from a teaching perspective, it's the teachers, the young people, the people who choose to become primary school teachers. They need to be competent across all those different key learning areas. And design is something that, when it's taught well at it, in initial teacher education, sparks their enthusiasm as well. So they're like just ready to go. They can't wait to have fun with this subject and connect it to the other curriculums. They see that opportunity of the integration and the transdisciplinary nature, of design tech. And I've got data now that kind of proves that. So, like, it's stuff that I've felt and that I know, a lot of it. Some of it's new, but now I can prove it with data, in research. So that's quite exciting.
Oh, absolutely. And like design is one of those things. Like I love teaching design. I I'm a tool maker by trade, so a precision machinist. So
Yeah.
I've got the technical skills. I was using CAD when I think the first time I used CAD was AutoCAD 12.
Yeah.
So so
Oh,
I'm
yeah. It
sure.
would have been a little bit around the same time, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been using all this sort of stuff, and then I went back to university and I did a design degree based in so design and technology, but
Yeah.
based in industrial design because I guess that's my
Yeah.
background. And the reason I did that is because I thought if I'm going to go into teaching, and I really hate teaching, I want something to
Yeah.
fall back on.
Yeah.
Um, I need something that's gonna meet my needs as well. But
Yes.
um,
Sure.
I got into teaching, and here we are 23 years later, 24 years later.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still really enjoying it. I mean, things have changed dramatically,
Mm.
but the drive to enhance what students are learning, and even the change in design and some of the stuff that's slowly breaking into education. We were learning about it way back when, but it's finally breaking into education.
Yeah.
But like you said, that the spotlight needs to be shone more on these subjects because traditionally they're the dumb kids, the trade kids
Mm.
would go into these subjects, the ones who weren't going to go to university. But as you and I both know, the executive function of design thinking is phenomenal.
Hmm. The
So
parts that you need to put together cognitively, it covers so many different things. And we talk about general capabilities. And I look at those things and I just think, we can do this with design. We can actually do this with design.
So how do you talk to these pre-service teachers about design thinking? Because it's, I mean, you and I, we know it, and we just, I guess, almost do it naturally because we've been covering it for so long. But how do you speak into the professional lives of these pre-service teachers?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Thanks, Phil. It's some of the best strategies I think that I used with my pre-service teachers was when I just shared stories about what I was doing in the classroom. So those years when I was teaching at ACU and working within that technologies education course, I was also teaching, at the coalface with those primary kids and trying things out. And I was being creative in the classroom. I made a maker space. I coached a Lego robotics team. I did things like that. And then I would tell those stories, um, in the tutorials and the lectures, sometimes the same week. They loved it. Also, another part of I think a nice strategy is I connected the pre-service teachers with the reality of what it's like to teach in schools. And I did that by collecting stories from people other than myself, because, as you said, I've worked in design, I've worked in tertiary education and at schools. I'd met lots of people who were doing really cool things, and I like to, connect all those dots. So I actually made this video series, which I used in my lectures and shoots, and I called it Inspiring Queensland Teachers. So I had these little videos, and that people would send me, and I had like a teacher librarian who'd set up a maker space, a food tech high school teacher, and they, people doing genius hour projects, all sorts of different things, design thinking, primary teachers, all sorts of stuff. And I'd get these videos and I would share them with my pre-service teachers, and they loved that because it was made for them. It was that talking to them, telling them, what to look forward to, giving them some advice and some tips and encouragement, and just sharing that enthusiasm for the profession that they had chosen to enter. And I think that takes them from beyond what assignment have I got due next, and I don't know, a textbook and an online learning platform and all that kind of monotony, I guess, of that initial teacher education, just to get the bit of paper and get them to see the big picture. So, I mean, you could do that in any subject, right? But I did it with design and tech and digital tech, and it worked really well.
Oh yeah, I think it's well needed because I mean, when I did my teacher training, I was fortunate enough to have quite a heavy prac based training,
Mm.
um, and so that actually taught me what being a teacher was like. And it was quite interesting. There was the discussion. You go on prac for 4 weeks, you come back, you'd have some lectures, and you
Mm.
do all these things, and um, there was some discussions, and because I came in as a mature age student, I would actually politely and respectfully, but there would be some debated discussions, or some almost heated discussions at times with my lecturers about, no, but this is what's happening in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Like we've got to do it this way. This is how the schools work. Like you're saying one thing, but this is the reality. And
yeah.
and I guess by what you've done, by doing those little real life stories,
Mm.
not just anecdotes, but
Mm.
the real life things, it actually creates that reality in the mind of these teachers. Like, okay, so
This is
can,
it's
I can.
actually the work. Yeah, that actually raises the other point. Every tutorial, I would do something hands-on. Actually, that's probably the main thing. The main thing I should have answered straight up. Every tutorial of that whole 12 weeks, I had stuff out. The very first shoot, I put them into a design thinking workshop situation where they had to, solve a problem, work in groups, make a prototype, pitch that prototype, come up with their how might we question, all those kind of things. And I took them through those activities that I'd developed, as at the Cube and at school, and I do kind of bite-sized pieces of those activities directly with those students. So I kind of put them out of their comfort zone, put them on the spot, made them, work with materials and make things and work with each other and communicate. And it was actually lots of fun because we laughed a lot and we chatted and we made things. We made a mess. I'd be lugging, a trolley's worth of gear around, but it was always really worth it because they got to actually play and experiment and not just, see it through, I don't know, a textbook.
Yeah, and I mean, you hit a key word there is play.
Yeah,
When you're
absolutely.
playing in education, when these kids are having fun, and I try and do that as quickly as I can. There's obviously the theoretical stuff and safety, workplace health and safety, that we've got to cover. We've got to protect these children so that they're safe. But you want it to be a fun environment, and there's as you know from your studies, people learn in two ways. Either the best ways they learn is either by fear or by fun.
Yeah,
Um, and fear definitely needs to be removed. Um, but to have fun, it actually shows what you can do.
yeah,
That
for
serious
sure.
and that term serious play.
Yeah,
Um,
and they'd turn
and
up to tutorials because they knew they were going to have a bit of a laugh and and try some things out. And then I can still remember an email I got from one of my students when she'd gone on her first prac, and she wrote to me and said, "Oh, I'm just writing to let you know that we actually had B-bots on prac because she went to prep or something." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the whole point of what I'm doing." Anyway, yeah,
yeah, because they get that experience
yeah,
and the joy of making. And for me, I get frustrated a lot because unfortunately, and look, there's so many factors, but so many schools are narrowing the scope of design and technologies as a subject, or if you're in New South Wales in TAS, as so technology and applied studies,
hmm,
and whatever they call it in various teaching regions. Um, but they're starting to narrow the focus, and I think the kids are losing these children and these students are losing these opportunities to actually have fun, to have a tactile classroom,
to make
to
things.
and to have a safe space to make mistakes and have fun doing it.
Yeah, all of those things. Absolutely, absolutely. I have actually, if I could share with you a little bits of my research findings,
Absolutely.
I won't go on too long, but I've got this quote in one of the focus groups, and it just kind of captured so much for me. Um, so this group of teachers, they were actually about to graduate, and we were talking about, design and technologies and design thinking and their plans for their future, their pedagogical, how they were going, their goals, all those kinds of things. Um, and yeah, this participant in my research, he said, I feel like design and technologies is one of the only subjects where kids learn that their ideas are valid.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's that's
it's
amazing.
gold. So,
It's it's
yeah,
it's it's almost a slap in the face, a statement like that, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And he'd gone through his whole, undergraduate degree, nearly finished, almost about to be a teacher. I'm sure he's out there somewhere being an amazing teacher and a definite, I know he will be a champion of design tech. Um, so I'm just so grateful that I captured that within my research because that's how I feel too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like
Maybe
I had
not
a
the
thing.
only subject, but it's great to hear that from a design perspective.
Well, we certainly hope it's not the only subject.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I certainly hope that. Like,
But
I
to
mean, I
know
had
that
a
it's not right or wrong, I guess, is what he intended with that statement. To know that, yeah, to take those risks and to experiment and to fail, and it's okay. Your idea's fine. Let's try this. Let's do that. Put it out there. Have the confidence to do that.
yeah, have the and one of my big things, and I've mentioned it too, on a number of other guests, is like our classrooms need to be a safe place to fail.
Yeah.
And I mean, design and technology, it's all about that. Like, and I tell the kids, like, can I do this? Well, yeah, you can. Do you like this? Well, I don't have to like it, but if you like it and you show me how you've done stuff, then
Mm,
you're a winner. Like, so
mm,
it's just like, but what if I don't finish it? That's okay. You got too complicated, but you're following this thing, and it's okay not to, because now you know next time, we look at design
mm,
thinking. It's like, that, yes, it's always at the end as evaluation, but we know that it's cyclic and evaluations
very
throughout.
much.
So maybe you
Yeah,
need to think about what you're doing.
yeah. And that's
And
that idea of learning how to iterate. You're developing so much metacognition through that process. You're learning how to think. You're learning how to evaluate and reflect as you're acting. And I think that's kind of what distinguishes design thinking from just solving problems.
yeah,
One
yeah,
of the ways.
because you're not just, I mean, and we know designers sometimes is purely about solving a problem, but it's about the journey of solving that
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Because as we know, and there's a myriad of products out there, that these solutions are almost accidental because they're looking at one thing but solving they solve something else by pure accident. So
It happens.
it does indeed. Now, what I want to ask you as well is with the more recent advent of artificial intelligence, and especially the way sketching and drawing is going, and the way generative AI is able to produce images, how do you see that as a positive, a negative, or you still, the jury's still out when it comes to design and tech in communicating ideas?
Yeah, look, I actually feel, to be very honest, have had my head in PhD research land, like really deep. And I don't know that I have formed an opinion in that way as such, but I do think sketching is a skill that is a beautiful skill, and it's something that should be like actually making a sketch and actually drawing and actually being able to work with perspective. That's probably some of my nicest memories from high school, being in that kind of like zone of being visual. And like prototyping and making, it's something we do with our hands. It takes us to that kind of slow place. We can enter the state of flow. And I would hate to think that that's somehow being lost. Although, of course, we keep up with the times and we work, with technologies as the subject develops. But I still think there's definitely a place for sketching.
Oh, I am 100% in agreement with you.
Oh, good.
Um, and I think it's so important, and I mean, because um, I'm not sure if when we were recording or not, but I mentioned when I first started with AutoCAD,
Mm.
I think it was like 12.1 or something or other. It was very early on. It was all
You've got a
DOS
good
prompt.
memory.
It was all, yeah. I mean, I guess it was a key part of my early career,
Yeah.
where I was, and I was very fortunate to with the company that I was working with, a very small company in tool making, but we were very cutting edge with a lot of the stuff we were doing. So they were just like, no, we've got to upskill you.
Mm.
You've got to know how to use this. So, um, but the amazing thing, and I think, and I teach it 100% to my students as well. I teach them those hand skills, the drawing, the freehand orthographic projection, the
Mm.
looking at objects in different views, because without that understanding of how it actually works, they lose the ability to really push the software to to its capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they look at, but why do I have to draw? I can't draw. Well, you can draw. Everyone can draw. Um,
And it's
and
observation skills as well, isn't it? There's so much happening when you're sketching. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and it's like the biggest thing, and you've probably heard it, is I can't sketch, I can't draw, and it's just like, well, and my comeback to them all the time is, well, can you write your name? And they're like, well, of course I can. And I said, well, then you can sketch and then you can draw, because you are learning how to put straight lines and curved lines together to communicate. That's all a sketch is.
All it is, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's a tool for communication, just like a prototype as well. That doesn't have to be perfect. It has to tell somebody the story, even if that's yourself to test something and try it out. It's a tool for communication. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meta-
And that, and And we
Take
know
the
that in design,
perfectionist out of it.
and that's the thing. I mean, they're so much that, like, when you're very early as a child, you can make a tree purple and you can make the sky
Yeah.
red and you can do all these crazy things because there's no rules. And all of
Mm.
a sudden you start to come into school, and then you got to color in the lines, and the tree has to be
Yeah.
green, and
Such a shame.
and then all of a sudden, we get them in year 7, when they're 12, 12 or 13 years old, and they need to draw the line straight, and they need to, and it's just like, no, just have
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And so
hesitate
that mindset's really difficult to break, I
to
guess. So
foster. Mm.
with your, and along those lines, so with your experience in tertiary training, like, are and by the sounds of it, your tutes and the way you teach, absolutely, it's giving them the advantage. But do you think, I guess, maybe in a broad stroke, that universities aren't quite doing enough to create that flexibility to show the upcoming teachers, these new pre-service teachers, that they can be creative, they can be experimentative in their classrooms?
Yeah. Well, I can only sort of speak to my particular research project, but one of the themes that came up in that is a lot of uncertainty. And I've linked that in some ways to the positioning of the curriculum, with design and technology, sorry, and digital technology side by side under the banner of technologies. And a lot of students would arrive at that subject thinking that it was all about coding.
Yes.
And they hated the idea of that, that have really low self confidence. And it was always kind of nice to take them through that and show them that this subject is playful and fun and experimental and creative and rich. And there's some coding, yeah, but but putting that all together was really nice. But something also, and again, I can only speak to my context, and I haven't got enough data on this yet, but maybe in another future project. But I do see that in first year, a lot of universities give a course in something like digital pedagogies where they're taught about, you know, uh, online etiquette and things like that. That is, of course, really important. But we don't seem to have the same foundational units in this kind of design thinking, creative realm, which I think would be amazing because of the way that it can integrate into other subjects, and into the general capabilities. So I'm an advocate for that, but of course, I can't change the whole system. But I can see that when they get it, even when it's a little bit, it changes the way they feel and the way they think and the way that they approach other subjects, and that subject particularly, under the banner of technologies in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a challenge, and to
Yeah.
to try and change a system that's been, I guess, entrenched for 100 years
Yeah.
or so.
And I
You know,
also
so
feel like the focus, and it's again, it's not a bad thing, but the focus in the community around digital technologies sometimes just takes a lot of that spotlight. Yeah.
yeah,
From
and
communities, from families, systems, policies, you know, we STEM is the thing of, it's it's been a big deal in the last 10 years, hasn't it? And though design fits there in the E, it's often just overlooked.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, like, I completely understand the acronym, STEM,
Yeah,
STEAM, and I think there's another one now. There's another
it's probably
variant of that.
10. Yeah.
But as a long-standing design teacher, it it to a certain extent, it sort of rubs me up the wrong way a little bit, because everything that I've done, like when I teach design, or when I'm teaching woodwork, I'm teaching metalwork, I'm teaching
Mm,
those facets. It's like I'm bringing material science into it. I'm
yeah.
bringing the technology of whatever we're using.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the engineering drawings into it. They've got to understand math, and it's just like you had this. There was this opportunity where design could have just been elevated
Hmm.
in such an amazing way,
Hmm.
but for whatever reason, it's shifted to that to STEM and STEAM, which is like well valid.
Yeah.
But it's just like, hold on,
Yeah.
let's try and bring it in, because that's what
Yeah.
design and technology teachers do. They put
Yeah.
all of that together.
Anyway, on the regular, I agree. So yeah, I've got sort of some findings in my research about that kind of stuff, around, yeah, design and technologies being a vehicle for integration. And this is coming from pre-service teachers of how they see it. They see how it can be integrated, after learning about it, over a period of time, which is great. They also see how it can develop skills. So all those lovely, skills for the future, the 21st century skills, those desirable qualities that are often talked
the,
about, for
the
kids.
the soft
Pre-service teachers
skills.
talk, yeah, yeah, and pre-service teachers often, even in questions when it was about just general education, they'd think about the kids that they were going to teach, even while they're not yet teachers, which was really, of course, a great thing to see in the data. They're thinking about the futures of the students that they're going to teach and wanting them
That's
to be
brilliant.
creative and resilient and all those good things. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
mm,
and that's, I guess that's
contribute
where
to the
the
future.
part of design thinking, our first stage of design thinking is the empathy.
Yeah.
They bring that in. It's like we need to think about, we need to put ourselves in their shoes. We need to think about from their perspective,
Yeah.
their worldview, their lens, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
and bringing that through. And look,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree. You said earlier that there's the digital pedagogies that are coming into a lot of courses, but I couldn't agree more that design thinking should be a course across universities or teacher
Mm.
training facilities, because whether it's English, engineering, maths,
Yeah.
science, PE, it's like you have these skills come into play. I mean, design thinking, as you know, is definitely in the more recent past really broken into the the business sector.
Mm.
People are sitting around there, design thinking specialists, because you're just working out how to solve a problem
Mm.
or overcome an obstacle, whatever it might be. So, and it's those skills of thinking and collaboration and teamwork and evaluating and refining and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's you
Yeah.
know
And teachers just need to see themselves as designers because they already are.
oh yeah,
It's
well, I
like
mean, there's that whole industry now of instructional designers, and it's just
learning
that's just
design, yeah.
yeah, it's just like, well, just any teacher can sign up for that job and they'll do it. So, but Leanne, it is a school night and it is a Monday
Yes,
night,
it is.
and I
Monday
know. And I do value your time and I do appreciate your time.
night.
And look, we've covered so much, and I'm sure we could probably talk for hours more on design and design thinking.
We could. I'm sure we could
Uh,
too. It's gone
as
quickly.
oh, it has gone very quickly, and look, it's so great engaging with educators who are passionate about design.
Yeah.
And for you, very much so. I mean, you've dedicated your life, your professional career to design, which is fantastic. So, um, I've got a couple of questions just to finish off, just before we wrap up. Um, First one is, do you have a mantra, a quote, something that so I guess is close to your heart, that has helped you through, or that gives you inspiration throughout all the stuff that you do?
I don't know. I don't think I have a mantra as such, but something that I hold really, like, I guess, close, like a value, is enthusiasm.
Yep,
I feel like if you can be enthusiastic about something in life, and you share that, yeah, you can pass that on. So, um, yeah, I'm really proud to be enthusiastic about design and about education, and I know, and I've become more confident, I guess, over the years. I know that I there's value in passing that on. So yeah, I would say that enthusiasm.
absolutely, yeah. And you definitely need that to stay in teacher in teacher training and in
and
education.
in a
Yeah.
PhD.
Oh, you
Yeah,
definitely need some enthusiasm there.
determination as well. Yeah,
Yeah, you got that grit and that hustle that
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that everyone puts out there, but in a good way, like there's we look at terminology, but you've got to work hard, and
Yeah,
but that's also a testament to you, but also it's a huge example to those who you impart your wisdom into, because they can see that, wow, it's actually
yeah,
worth it. It's worth it. It's worth the
yeah,
hard work. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
oh, anyone who has completed a PhD is, look, hats off,
Well, I'm not
100%.
that anyone quite yet, but I'm going to get there.
You will get there. You will get there,
Yeah,
guaranteed. I'm sure.
thank you.
Um, Another question is, do you have a challenge for people who are listening? Could be an easy one, could be just a more ethereal one, but a challenge for our listeners.
Oh, I think I'd like the listeners, and I know you have a really broad range of listeners, but to just reflect on some of the things that we've talked about and notice where you see design thinking in everyday life. Like you said, it's about problem solving in a creative way. It's about um, iterating and empathizing and all those things put together. And I think if we can kind of notice that, then the subject area will, you know, be more, I don't know, it might live up to its potential, because I guess the research around design thinking and design education is really getting really solid about, I guess, how great it is and what potential is within it to develop all these great qualities. And I want the system and all the teacher education system as well to come and meet that potential. And I think if we notice it, yeah, we can all then join forces. That's kind of my dream, I guess.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. If we
I
could,
don't know if
yeah. If
that's a
we.
challenge, but that's all I
Oh,
could
and
think
look.
of.
Oh, it's look. It's something to run through with education, is to try and bring design
Yeah,
thinking into it. And
yeah,
look, everything's easier said than done, but it's so the hardest things are always worthwhile.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
Um.
I do agree
So
with that. Absolutely,
yeah.
that's a good mantra.
I'll have to write that one down.
Yeah.
So. Hey, look, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast if I didn't ask, do you have any tattoos?
I actually don't. I don't even have my ears pierced.
For a designer, that surprises me,
I don't know. Well, I don't know.
because
I kind
usually
of
we're a
made it
little,
my thing not to. I was like, I'm different because I don't have any. So that's me, you know?
you're rebellious in the other
Yeah,
way.
in the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Come at me. Yeah.
Oh, look, no, look, we all express our creativity and our personalities in very different ways, and like I said, I get to a certain extent, like, not having your ears pierced, and like as a designer, interior designer, I mean, you see some of them out there who are just like, I mean, very flamboyant, very avant-garde with how they dress, how they hold themselves. But to see, and again, this is a testament to you and a example to your students, is to hold strong to who you are as a person, as an
Yeah.
individual, in to know what you're capable of, irregardless of
Yes.
how we display ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice way to think about it. I guess like I'm a country kid and I came to the city and came straight into university, into that interiors world and worked in architecture and everything. And I sometimes it made me feel, yeah, like, oh, am I enough in that way? But no, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's excellent. And like, I'm the city kid who has to rebel, you know, and puts it out there in a good way. But then again, like, people look at me to a certain extent and just like, what's this guy on about? Um, but
We
then
get
we
we get
get
to
we
know
get
each
to know,
other.
we get to know each other, and
Yeah.
you realize that it's what's, and again, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, one, we get the stories out there, but we get to know the person behind
Yeah.
the screen, the facade, the
LinkedIn profile.
CV.
Yeah,
Yeah, we get
absolutely.
to understand that who they actually are and what they can bring, what value they can bring to wherever they are. So,
Yeah, and what they're driven by. It's really, really interesting. So thanks for what you're doing as well. I love it. It's really great. I'm really glad we met through the master's program. It's really nice to see what you're doing. Thanks, Phil.
uh, well, thank you so much. And it's just like you've almost it's. And I was just having a conversation just with my wife earlier. She goes, "Oh, who are you interviewing tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I'm interviewing one of my lecturers who was in the masters." She goes, "Are you going to start that up again?" And it's just like, conversations here, our conversations like, "Oh,
Yeah,
maybe I
it
should,
could be a
maybe I
sign.
should kick it,
It could be a
maybe
sign.
maybe I should kick it off again,
And then
and
turn
do
it
that
into
because,
a PhD. That's a good idea.
well, look, I've got 40 episodes of research already, so.
You sure do.
But look, Leighann, I appreciate your time. I value your expertise. I appreciate you as a person, and thank you so much for sharing and being on the podcast this evening.
Thanks, Phil. My absolute pleasure.
And I wish you all the very best as you finalize your studies.
Thanks.
Um,
I
I
need
tip my hat again, and I look forward to seeing when you post that you have
the hat.
completed
Yeah,
you've got the floppy hat.
I can't wait for that hat.
Well, Leanne, thank you so much again, and you have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you for listening to the Tattooed Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your network. Special thanks to DJ Fruit Salad for the music. You can find more of his work on Instagram at DJ Fruit Salad Official. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Stay cool, be blessed.